Episode 112, Alaric DeArment. Good morrow, everybody, and welcome back to the Realm. Today I have a very special guest, a man who writes for Altered Reality magazine online. His story, He Who Rides a Pony, is both fantasy and dystopian sci-fi mixed together. It's a bit of speculative fiction. That's how I got introduced to him. I started reading it and I got addicted. And so I'm riding along with that pony as we go along in our serials for Altered Reality. And Alaric, welcome to the Realm.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Sure. So let's just jump right into it. I mean, tell the viewers a little about He Who Rides a Pony and what the story's about.
Right. So first of all, the title He Who Rides a Pony comes from a line in the song Crown of Thorns by Mother Love Bone, one of the early grunge bands in Seattle. Just that particular line evoked a kind of overall theme in the story, which is, sort of riding high and then falling down. So the story is about a journalist in Seattle working for the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, which was an actual newspaper. His father passes away, he inherits his coin collection, and he finds a really strange little piece that is not really properly identified. And he discovers through a bunch of research that his father actually was a kind of refugee from this alternate universe. So at the end of the first section of that story, a guy named Amadeo Darsa manages to find the main character and essentially recruits him to go back over to that universe and become a part of this new government he wants to form. But it becomes clearer and clearer eventually that Amadeo Darsa is a very malevolent figure.
Well, I got to say something. The name Amadeo Darsa is a great name for a character and a great name for a villainous character at that. And as I was reading through the story, I know the story is broken into three parts, but I see a bit of you in each of those parts, right? I know that you're a coin collector. I know that you travel the world and have seen some of these places and you're using them to kind of, inspire along the story. And even I think your love for some like dystopian sci-fi stuff, kind of plays into that too. But are these places where you're finding inspiration for He Who Rides a Pony?
Yeah, I would say that definitely. I got inspiration from some of these places. So I visited Dubrovnik back in 2018, kind of a side trip because I was visiting Belgrade in Serbia. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I went to Dubrovnik in large part because I was a big Game of Thrones fan. But I actually found a lot of inspiration in Belgrade because, it's, the capital of Serbia. It's got this very troubled history. So you walk into the city and it's like this bombed out building right in the middle of it. I had this feeling like I'd crossed into some kind of alternate universe. That combined with like the fact that there's like graffiti all over the place. I mean, Belgrade has a very gritty look to it. It's a very like rundown kind of gritty place.
And you're taking your own personal trip into Alaric's Twilight Zone, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's actually an interesting city too. I mean, there's some very interesting, beautiful places to visit also.
It sounds to me like you're a world traveler too, man. Are you finding that your world travels also play into your current and future writing?
Yeah, I do get a lot of inspiration from places, from history. I mean, and usually when I travel, that's what I like to see is history. I'm not a I don't like the beach that much. I mean, I've always had this weird kind of interest in these sort of like malignantly charming places like Belgrade.
Yeah. Well, look, I've got something in common with you. I don't like beaches. I don't have the pigmentation for that. And I like you. I'm a amateur historian, and seeing some of these places where you read about them and you think of them, and you see some pictures, but when you travel there, it's an entirely different ballgame. If you had a favorite place that you would want to go, where would that be?
I guess if I'm thinking about places I haven't been to yet, Peru is very high on my list. Ethiopia, Romania.
Yeah, the Romanian thing is really interesting to me. Doing the Dracula tour, so I know that I mentioned dystopian. Is there any of this dystopian sci-fi or dystopian fantasy out there that attracted you? Maybe kind of taken any inspiration from some of that stuff?
I think a lot of the work of William Gibson, I always found his writing to be very inspiring. I mean, because it was interesting because he was trying to kind of like upend science fiction, kind of get away from the whole space opera, alien invasion tropes and into this sort of near future dystopia. Clockwork Orange was a favorite. I read that book as a teenager, like in the space of one weekend, essentially, because I was just into it.
I got to tell you, Clockwork Orange freaked me out. I've got this irrational fear of eyes, and the scene where he has his eyes, I can't even.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't watch the movie for a couple of years until I got a little more mature. And I know that's something from a movie perspective that's also shaped politics. It's shaped cultures in a lot of different ways. And I think you're trying to do that in He Who Rides a Pony a bit. Good. Well, a couple other things. You mentioned before coin collections. I understand that you also collect coins. What draws you to coin collecting?
I got into that when I was a kid. My mom actually turned me on to it because she had collected coins. And then I sort of fell out of it again, but then I got into it again later. Mostly what I collect is kind of like pre-1800s old world, especially medieval and early modern.
Yeah, well, so you use a lot of symbolism in He Who Rides a Pony. Are there messages in there that you're trying to convey?
Yeah, but really where it all started was the kind of general anxiety that a lot of people, admittedly myself included, have about, sort of degradation of liberal democracy around the world, including here in the US. And that's really kind of what it's meant to reflect. I mean, the character of Amadeo Darsa, I based him a lot on Vladimir Putin, Bashar al-Assad. He has that same kind of ability to convince people that he has good intentions when in fact he's a complete monster. In some respects, it is very much about what's going on in the United States as well as other Western countries.
That's pretty interesting. So with that, we're going to enter into our lightning round. So I'm going to throw out a couple of questions at you. One-word answers, maybe very short-word answers. If you throw me off and you catch me at something, I might stop and ask you why. Okay. But usually we fire through here at the end of the show. So I'm going to start out with a movie you talked about a little earlier and a book that you read, Clockwork Orange. What is your favorite character from Clockwork Orange?
I'll just say Alex. I mean, he is the main character after all.
So I hinted at this a little earlier, but I'm going to throw this at you anyway. You've got a round-trip ticket to anywhere in the world that you want to go, all expenses paid. Where do you choose to go?
Peru.
Peru? Okay, and why? I got to ask that, right?
As for why, I mean, obviously the history, it's just the natural beauty, all of, stuff, Machu Picchu, Cusco.
Oh, yeah.
All of that.
Anyway, you mentioned Game of Thrones. I know that's a favorite show and book series for you. Tell me, who's your favorite Game of Thrones character and why?
Melisandre. Yeah.
So that's a good one. That's a really good one. Okay, so why? Why Melisandre?
She's just so dark and mysterious. I always liked her a lot.
That's cool. Thank you, Alaric, for coming on the Realm today. We appreciate your time and looking forward to continuing your work alongside us at Altered Reality Magazine.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I told you, Alaric here is a cool cat. When you use words like malignantly enchanting, you're talking to an author. And so I was really happy to have him on the show, and I enjoy having him on Altered Reality Magazine, which is my big announcement for the week. I will be taking over Altered Reality Magazine online. You can find it at alteredrealitymag.com, and you'll be able to find both my story, The Element of Time, and Alaric's story, He Who Rides a Pony, on that. And thanks again for everybody joining me, and may your gods go with you.